My name is Kelly Donnelly-Williams. I'm the Director of Human Services at the Maricopa Association of Governments. And we do this work in partnership with our colleagues at the Arizona Community Foundation. My colleague Amber Starr is here from ACF, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Amber Starr, Senior Coordinator Impact Investing for the Arizona Community Foundation. It is such a pleasure to be with everyone this morning and celebrate our partnership with MAG. We have been hosting these semi-quarterly webinars on tribal affordable housing, just topics related to how we can implement more affordable housing on tribal nations. And we have had phenomenal speakers over the past, I want to say, year and a half or 2 years or so. So at ACF, we do have a number of resources that we can grant out and also loan out to our community partners that are working on tribal nations or in partnership with tribal nations. If you guys are not aware, we do have 4 loan funds. 2 of them focus specifically on affordable housing. And then we have a partnership with the USDA for rural infrastructure development, in addition to very low interest rate loans for nonprofits and public entities statewide. So I will put my information in the chat, just if anyone would like to contact me afterward, just for additional information. And so happy to be here. And I'm very excited to hear from Nick and Amy and learn more and listen along with you all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amber. We decided to go into partnership with the Arizona Community Foundation on this important work in hosting these webinars in 2022, in part because we recognize that access to affordable housing can be a challenge both on and off of tribal nations. We have had a wide variety of subject matter experts and different components of increasing access to affordable housing on tribal lands participate, and we are excited today to welcome our colleague Nick Shivka from Local First Arizona. I'm going to pull up Nick's bio. Nick is a Senior Manager of Sustainability Initiatives at Local First Arizona, which gives him the privilege of helping entrepreneurs future-proof their businesses. He has his master's degree in sustainability solutions and brings his experience as a former business owner to help build vibrant, sustainable, and inclusive local economy. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our colleague, Nick. Thanks for being here, Nick.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, and at the core, really at the core of our work at Local First Arizona, we're really all about connecting businesses, rural communities, tribes to funding, support, and resources so they can meet their community building vision. Just a little bit about kind of our work in this area. We have the Economic Recovery Center at Local First Arizona, and we've helped to connect rural communities, tribes, and nonprofits to over $50 million in grant funding over the last 2 years. And so this work with really diving into all the federal funding opportunities available for tribal housing has been a joy because we've already kind of gotten our feet wet in parsing through the details. And so I'm excited to bring you hopefully a pretty simple, straightforward walkthrough on how to navigate these funding opportunities, whether you are a tribe, whether you're a developer, a project manager, just some key terms in what to look for, and all in hopes that you can bring down the myriad ways that the federal government can help fund these projects. And hopefully bring them to fruition. I will have one caveat that I am not a CPA, and that everybody listening to this today should make sure they double check with their CPA on all of these tax credits and how you're able to take advantage of them. So without further ado, I think I'll just get right into it. Is that okay, Kelly?
Yes, please. And also,
Okay.
one other quick note, if you do have questions during the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat. There will be time at the end to answer questions as well. If you would like to leave your contact information, we can make sure the speakers get those as well.
Yes, thank you. Very happy to answer those questions after in the chat as well and in a follow-up email. All right, so let's get started. Affordable housing on tribal lands. So here are essentially the building blocks of what you need to know about the opportunities to support these efforts. We can go to the next slide. So just a little background on the Inflation Reduction Act. This was passed in 2022. It's the largest investment in clean energy in US history. It's designed to help cut energy costs where energy infrastructure exists, to create new jobs and new opportunities for small businesses, including in communities with fewer resources or in communities where resources have not been able to go yet. Hoping to drive carbon pollution to net zero, and improving health through cleaner air and water. So this is essentially a massive spending package that is been made available, but the money needs to be spent so that the federal government knows that this is a worthwhile program. And I know that if you're here in this webinar, you probably have a worthwhile project to look into. So let's get into it. Next slide. We're going to get into some of the lingo that you will 100% be seeing when you're navigating the Inflation Reduction Act and how to pull down these incentives. To get us started, it's something called elective pay and direct pay. Now, previously, for tax credits, nonprofits, tribal governments, state governments, publicly owned utilities, etc., could not benefit from tax credits because they're not taxed. They have no tax liability. So often these tax credits, which could have very easily benefited the above named, could not be taken advantage of. With the Inflation Reduction Act, however, they've changed this so that instead of receiving a tax credit for the following incentives, you can receive a check from the IRS equal to the amount of the tax credit. So you don't need that tax liability. We can go to the next slide. Another term that you'll most definitely be seeing is stackability. Now, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability to stack several different tax credits on top of each other so that in theory, you can maybe get anywhere from 10% to up to 90 or even 100% of your project paid for by taking advantage of a certain number of tax credits. So for example, a business owner in Cottonwood, they can cover the cost of their solar panel project. They can get 80% combined by stacking the investment tax credit and the Rural Energy for America program tax credit on top of each other. So stackability essentially means you can take advantage of several tax credits. They don't negate each other. You can stack those up. Next slide. Oh, yes. Okay. So this is also exciting for the Inflation Reduction Act. Before, if you were looking into low-income housing tax credits, there were other incentives that if you take advantage of them along with the low-income housing tax credits, that's this LIHTC, it would diminish the amount of LIHTC credit you would be able to get. But now that's not the case. So any projects that are low-income housing tax credit projects are really great candidates for this because, again, they can be stacked without that credit being diminished. Next slide. Okay, so those were some terms for these that you'll most definitely be seeing as you navigate Inflation Reduction Act incentives. I'm going to go through some specific examples of what's out there for you, so that if you have a project that includes any of these, or if you're thinking about any of these, there are several credits for specific work, whether you're looking into energy efficiency, whether you're looking to building a whole new development that is energy efficient, maybe even renewable energy, for solar. And depending on where the projects are located, you may be eligible for certain tax credits. So let's get into it. The first one is the investment tax credit. So energy systems that are renewable, i.e. solar, which tends to be the most common application for renewable energy, in battery storage to be able to store this off grid very important, especially for our rural and tribal communities that may not have consistent access to grid energy. So if you have a project that begins before 2033, you're eligible for a 30% investment tax credit on any solar or renewable energy system and battery storage that you build into that project. And this is also something that qualifies for elective pay for nonprofit developers. So that would mean that you're getting that direct check. Next slide. Let's see, I want to make sure. Okay, so let's not get too into the weeds on this one because I think this gets a little bit more detailed than we want to get in this webinar. But this just shows that depending on how much energy generation that you're building and where the materials are coming from, you will get more tax credit. So you get that 30% base tax credit. But if all the materials that you're procuring are domestically produced, you get an additional 10%. If it's located in an energy community, which we'll get into, you get another 10%. You also get a bonus if you are in a low income community or on indigenous land. So you get that base 30% tax credit for this investment tax credit, but there are also bonuses that can be stacked depending on procurement and where it's located. Next slide. All right, energy communities. I just mentioned this term. This is what the Department of Energy has determined are energy communities. And these are usually communities that are not necessarily serviced by a public utility. They might be a rural electric cooperative. It might be served from somewhere else. There may not be any energy access at all. So Department of Energy is really looking to incentivize projects that are happening in these areas that are shaded in purple. And I think with the yellow and the orange as well, I think there's different incentives available in these areas, but in general, these are what are designated as energy communities, and you're going to get more of a tax credit for development in these areas. Next slide. All right, this is a really exciting tax credit, and this is especially for multifamily developers. So this is called the 45L, Energy Efficient New Build Tax Credit. So multifamily developers who are constructing new energy efficient homes can get $5,000 per dwelling unit, depending on the home type, number of floors, and making sure to reach specific energy requirements. Can't get into the weeds on these requirements. This is built into the guidance, so you have to look into specifically what you need because you might need a different energy requirement depending on how many floors you have in the building. And we could talk about that all day. But in general, you get $5,000 per dwelling unit. This does not qualify for elective pay. So if you're a nonprofit home builder, you would need to be in some kind of arrangement with a for-profit developer. This could look like maybe they can take your tax credit for you and maybe they can take that cost off the top. But that would have to be something you would want to determine with who you're working with. But this is a really exciting tax credit that's included in the Inflation Reduction Act. Next slide. Next one is the Commercial Energy Efficient Building Tax Deduction. This is for existing buildings. So if you're able to make your existing building more energy efficient by at least 25%, and that would be determined by an energy audit before and after the construction, you qualify for this deduction. If you get higher energy savings, if you're higher than that 25%, you get higher tax deductions. Building owners, you can claim this deduction, and nonprofits can maybe, again, they can assign this deduction to the architecture firm they might be working with. And this is a lot of really infrastructure, ordinary kind of stuff, like LED lights, air conditioning units, ventilation, insulation, hot water heaters, etc. Being able to reduce the energy footprint by 25% or more in an existing building. Next slide. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the tax deduction, if you get 25% energy deduction, it's 50 cents per square foot. Up to $1 square foot if you get 50% energy reduction. There is a significant bonus if you hire a contractor that pays the prevailing wage and hires apprentices. This is something that you can look at. I believe if you are on sam.gov, which most of you probably are, you know that if you're paying the prevailing wage, you'll be able to get certain bonuses. So that 50 cent per square foot goes up to $2.50 per square foot if you're working with a contractor that's paying prevailing wage. Next slide. This is essentially the EV tax credit or electric vehicle tax credit. It's called the commercial clean vehicle tax credit. If you buy an EV, if you buy it new, you can get up to $7,500 for a car or truck that's less than 14,000 pounds. And I believe if it's used, you can still get a $4,000 tax credit. What's really exciting, if you're looking for a commercial sized vehicle on site or for operations, I don't know how much that would apply to this group, but for vehicles more than 14,000 pounds in certain applications, you can get up to $40,000 for tractor trailers and other heavy vehicles, essentially up to 30% of the purchase cost. Next slide. Okay, and this is the REAP program or Rural Energy for America program. If you're a for-profit rural business, this can cover 50% of your solar installation, which is a huge deal. And that includes battery storage, that includes energy efficient upgrades that might be included in that project as well. And this is a grant. This is not a tax credit. This is not an incentive. This is a grant. So you don't have to pay it back. But it is considered taxable income when it comes down to tax time. Next slide. Yes. Okay. So if you're a for-profit housing developer, you can compete for REAP funding if you are located in a rural community, being less than 50,000 residents. If you qualify as a small business, and you have a communal space or office that could benefit from solar panels or energy efficient projects. So again, the REAP projects, you can't use this to build solar on each dwelling unit. But if you do have a common area building, maybe you have a community center, maybe there is a center in the middle of the community that provides refrigeration, water, maybe some emergency services, maybe people who are awaiting medical attention can wait there. Maybe it's a place that people can go when the power goes out. Anything like that, that is what qualifies for REAP. It could even be a place where you can charge up batteries for people to take into their dwelling units, but it has to be a communal space. Go to the next slide. All right. So that was a lot of different stuff, lots of terms, lots of examples of the really awesome credits. So thought it would be good to build an example to kind of show you how to take advantage of these. Okay, so here's the scenario. The San Carlos Apache tribe is seeking to build an energy efficient 100-unit affordable housing development, which is located in a designated energy community per DOE, and this is something you can look up online. You've entered into an equity partnership with a developer to construct the housing complex. And we're going to be building a 250,000 solar project on the development to offset all of the unit's energy use. So here's the math. Let's go to the next slide. So for starters, this is a 100-unit affordable housing project. So you'll be able to take advantage of the 45L tax credit as long as the new construction meets those energy efficiency requirements and it's ready to be connected to renewable energy, you're able to claim the full $5,000 per unit credit. So for 100 units, you can get a $500,000 credit on this project. But that's just for that. We can get into the investment tax credit too. So this is going to be an energy efficient project. So you get the 30% base credit, which is $75,000 off that new solar system. It's located in an energy community, remember, so you get that 10% energy community bonus credit. Because this is being constructed on indigenous land, there's an additional 10% bonus for projects developed. So that's another $25,000 credit. This also qualifies as a low-income residential housing project, and that's another 20% bonus. So that's $50,000. So your total investment tax credit would be $175,000. And your total 45L tax credit is $500,000. So total value of your tax credits is $675,000 in this particular scenario. So this really illustrates the stackability potential of projects like these, which is really exciting and I think can really help to invigorate developers and project managers to really develop projects and homes that are built for the future. They're energy efficient into the future. They're built with resilient materials. They're able to be powered by renewable energy generation in the case of a grid blackout. It's just really exciting. And I'm sure everybody will be able to get a copy of this presentation so you can kind of dig back into all of the different examples in this math. But yeah, that's essentially it. I don't think there's another slide after this, right?
No, there is not.
Okay, I thought so. That's good because I didn't have anything else. But what I will say is that at Local First, we're very well connected into the different entities that help move these mechanisms of development, being the federally designated Rural Development Council for Arizona. We are uniquely positioned to be helping different communities with these projects. So please reach out, and I am absolutely here for questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Nick. That was wonderful. We do have a couple questions in the chat that hopefully you'll be able to answer. The first is from our colleague Amber about sam.gov.
Yes.
About that?
Sure. So sam.gov is a place essentially where you can become, as an entity, if you're a developer, if you're a tradesperson, you can register at sam.gov to essentially get contract opportunities. So a lot of projects may require that vendors are registered on sam.gov before they're able to do the work. So it's a really good idea if you are this type of business, if you're a contractor, if you're in construction, any kind of trade or anything like that, it's recommended to sign up at sam.gov. I have to admit, I'm not super well versed in the process of going through sam.gov and what happens along the way. I know I've recommended this action to some businesses, and we have some people on staff that help people through that process. So I specifically and admittedly cannot speak to that process, but I'm very happy to do some follow-up with my team, with people who do that.
Great, thanks, Nick. The next question is from Jen. It says, is REAP a reimbursable grant or is the award paid up front? And
Yes.
what does the compliance or reporting back look like on the credits?
Okay. Yes, so the REAP grant is reimbursable. It's not something that comes up front. We were working with a business up in Cottonwood who they had to put the cash out up front. And I think they were actually able to get a loan for the project. But pretty quickly, I think it was a couple months after, they said, yep, we just got $50,000 in our bank account. So it does take a little bit of time, but it's not something that you just get up front and are able to pay for it. So you have to have kind of the cash outlay to be able to do the project. And then the follow-up to that is, once built, what's the compliance or reporting look like on the credits? So when DOE releases any of these credits or grants like this, you'll be getting a report and essentially some guidelines on how to do that. Compliance, you have to share, I'm pretty sure you have to share your energy information on the credits, like how much is being offset, and that basically looks like your utility bills. In terms of, and that's just from the business perspective. If you're a nonprofit or if you're building affordable housing, it may be different depending on the application for the REAP grant. So I can't necessarily speak on additional compliance if you're building affordable housing, but I know that Department of Energy lays that out for you when you are applying for a REAP grant, depending on what you're applying for and who you are. Okay, next question is from Christine. If the tribe partners with the developer, can the developer also apply for REAP on this project? Ooh, interesting question. So if you're asking if they can both apply for the same project, 2 different REAP grants, there can only be one. And I'm not sure if that's what the question is, but the other way that I'm reading this is if the developer could be the one to apply for the REAP project instead of the tribe. You could do that. Just make sure that you're entering into agreement where the developer takes that cost off the top for you. Often, if you're a large developer, you can pretty much swallow those costs up front to be able to get the project going, and then later on take that payment from REAP. So I'd recommend in that partnership that the tribe say, hey, yes, we would like to apply for this. Can you please take this cost off the top for us? And you guys can go ahead and collect the REAP money when it comes in, and they'll be responsible for the reporting. Okay, Pristine. Yes, assuming the tribe applied for the tax credits and the developer applies for REAP. Yes, yes. And very happy to follow up on that, Pristine, too.
All right, Nick, thank you again for your time this morning. That was wonderful. I was just going to ask you to put your contact information in the chat. You beat me to it. Thank you so much. We really
You're so welcome.
You're welcome to stay for the second part of our webinar as well. I am very looking forward to welcoming our next speaker, Amy St. Peter, the Deputy Executive Director here at the Maricopa Association of Governments. Amy coordinates diverse priorities and perspectives in the development of solutions that strengthen the vitality of one of the fastest growing areas in the country. Ms. St. Peter earned her Master's of Public Administration from ASU in 2004 and graduated cum laude with a bachelor's degree in sociology and writing from Loyola College in 1994. She has an extensive background in human services. She's worked at MAG for nearly 20 years. We just celebrated 20 years, didn't we, Amy? Mm-hmm. Yes. And happens to be my boss. So with that, I will kick it off to Amy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate the warm introduction. Really excited to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to be able to share this new opportunity with you. This is brand new. We have received a grant from JP Morgan Chase Foundation to support the Housing Opportunities and Mentorship and Education Technical Assistance Program. So I'll be sharing some information about that program with you today. And if you have any questions, any ideas, suggestions, please feel free to add those to the chat throughout. We also have an opportunity for you to offer your thoughts through a poll and a survey at the end. We can go to the next slide, please. So the catalyst for this program truly is a housing crisis that's facing the country, the state, and of course this region as well. The map that you see in front of you reflects the severely cost-burdened households who are present and living in our community. So when we're looking at this, we need to be thinking about these are our coworkers, our friends, our family, our neighbors, and maybe even ourselves. Severely cost burden is defined as spending more than 50% of your income every single month just on housing. Housing is only considered affordable if you're paying no more than 30% of your income. And there are thousands of households just like that across the region as well. But these are the ones who are severely cost burdened and paying more than 50%. So you can see that to varying degrees, people are struggling throughout the entire region. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation and why we're so excited to be able to offer this technical assistance Because when someone is spending more than 50% of their income every single month just on housing, that really puts them in a very precarious situation where they might experience homelessness and lose their home as a result of just not being able to afford it. We work with people experiencing homelessness all the time, and lack of affordable housing or lack of housing that's affordable to them is often the number one reason why they're experiencing homelessness. We can go to the next slide, please. And so as a result, we now do have this grant from the JP Morgan Chase Foundation because housing is a universal need, but the ability to access housing is getting harder and harder throughout the region. Solutions need to be custom tailored to each community. There isn't one size that fits all. Every person has a different story. Every community has a different story. So it's critically development as we address this universal need, we come up with customized solutions that really meet the priorities and the character, the resources of every community in our region. So JP Morgan Chase Foundation gave us a 2-year $500,000 grant. That was awarded to Regional Community Partners, which is a 501c3 agency located within the Maricopa Association of Governments. The majority of this funding will be used to secure consultants who have expertise in the areas that you identify, areas that we hear from communities are really important to them. We'll be using those funds then to connect local and tribal governments with those consultants in order to build and preserve housing that is more affordable. We can go into the next slide, please. So there are a few main activities underway right now that are included in the Home TA program. This includes the development of an inventory. We very much want local and tribal governments to drive this project. And so we're collecting from you, what are your ideas? What topics interest you when it comes to building and preserving housing that's affordable? We do have a survey that's available. We'll have that QR code and link available in just a few slides. We do encourage you to complete that survey. But if we could bring up the poll right now, Craig, please. And this is a last minute request, so really appreciate Mimi, Craig, Sapna for jumping in very quickly. So if you could go ahead and just answer this poll, be sure to scroll down to the end of it because we do have a number of different topics that we've heard from stakeholder interviews, from community discussions about what interests them right now, what topics are of interest to you, what would you like more information about. We're going to use the information that you share today and also through the survey. We're going to build that inventory that reflects all of your priorities, your interests, and then we'll use that then to develop a request for proposals that we'll use to secure consultant assistance with expertise very specifically in those areas. So it looks like excellent. Thank you. We still have a little bit more time if anyone else would like to complete that survey. I'll just pause for a moment so you're not trying to think as I'm talking. Thanks. So right at about 50% participation. So far, the results indicate a strong preference for housing studies and housing needs assessments, particularly when that's custom tailored for each community. That's really critical because while we need all kinds of housing, we need a lot more diversity. Communities are different in what price points are needed within their housing market. So that's been reflective so far in the survey results that we've seen come in from other stakeholders. Also running high, preparing the request for proposals, generating community support, and identifying parcels for redevelopment or construction. So we have just over 50% participation. I think we're going to go ahead and I'll keep on talking. If you'd like to continue completing the poll, then that would be fantastic. But otherwise, just want to be able to share with you some of the other information that we have available today. So we're going to be using the results of that poll then to develop that inventory. We're going to use that inventory as a basis for that request for proposals. And then we'll be using that to identify the consultants who have expertise in the areas that you've prioritized. And that's really critically important. And then we'll offer an application process for local and tribal governments then to let us know of the various forms of assistance that we have among the various consultants, what is of the most interest. And we'll have a bit more about that as well. But throughout this entire process, please do continue communicating with us. It's really important that we stay in constant communication with you to make sure that we're really driving this project in a way that that meets your needs, that addresses your top priority areas. So if you have any questions at any point, any suggestions, any ideas, please always feel free to reach out and let us know. We'll be continuing to work through the committees that you see on the screen and through a formal process, and then also working with our stakeholders in informal communication to be able to hear their advice and their support on this. We can go to the next slide, please. So we're not just offering technical assistance in a range of different topics, we're also offering technical assistance in a range of different formats. So all of these will be available to the local and tribal governments who take advantage of this program, who leverage this program and participate. It could be one-on-one mentorship. It could be, hey, I'm a staff member and I just need some help working through this. I want to be able to proceed in the direction that I've received from my leadership, but I just need some technical assistance. Yes, we can absolutely do that. It may be a whole team from your agency wants to participate. Perfect. We may also have small group peer learning. So if there are a number of different agencies who are requesting similar kinds of help and it's not super sensitive where they'd want to maintain confidentiality, and yes, we're happy to send out the slides after the presentation, then we might group folks together and have a peer learning network. And so if it's communities who are of a similar composition, similar demographics, similar position, we might group them together, and then they would work with a consultant who would walk with them through whatever they're wanting to learn. It may be also that we hear from a lot of folks, we need help with this topic. We might also offer a larger webinar like this that then could be recorded and posted to our website so people can avail themselves of that benefit at any point throughout the process and beyond. I'm so excited to be able to offer a variety of different ways to learn and to share, and really also wanting to highlight the best practices, because we do have a lot of really good work going on right now in our community. We want to be able to highlight that and share that as well. We could go to the next slide, please. So you just saw these in the poll that was just that was just offered. These are just examples of those possible topics. We've been able to identify these. SEPNA's been doing a great job on being able to reach out to key stakeholders in the community, also our key committees here at MAG who have interest in this space, and been able to really glean from them what are some of the topics that are of interest right now, what would be helpful as we want to support communities who are building and preserving housing that's more affordable. So we've been able to identify this initial list. If you have other topics in mind, please do let us know. We want to make sure that the inventory and the resulting technical assistance is responsive and relevant to your priorities. And also, if you would like to add more ideas to the chat, please feel free to do that. We're collecting your feedback in a variety of different ways. So if there are topics, pieces of information, reports, activities, anything like that that would interest you in this space, please do feel free to add that to the chat. We'll be sure to document that response as well. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So these are the next steps. Craig, if you don't mind, please putting the survey link in the chat. This is the QR code as well. So if you have a smartphone and you want to use a QR code, please feel free to do that. Also, the link, thank you, Craig, is now in the survey. Please do fill out the survey, even if you participated in the poll. There are more questions in the survey. Again, it doesn't take long. It's just a few minutes. But we're really wanting to make sure that we have your feedback, that we leverage your expertise, your deep knowledge of the communities that you serve as we develop this program. So the inventory is really critical because that will drive the technical assistance, the kinds of consultants who are secured to assist us with this project. I'd like to call your attention, though, to that mini conference. So this was this idea came about after we actually submitted the grant proposal and received the award. But as we're talking with folks with different communities, they're saying, you know, I know that I need to do something in this space. I'm not exactly sure what yet, and I don't know what I don't know, which is completely legitimate. I think that applies to each and every single one of us. And so the idea was, once we have an idea of what those topics are and we have the consultants on board, to bring folks together so that they can hear from the consultants directly about their areas of expertise, and also be able to get to know the consultant a little bit to determine if they might be a good fit for their community. Because there's those soft skills, those hard skills, and sometimes that's really hard to glean just by looking at a resume or an application. So we'll have an application to invite local and tribal governments to let us know what kind of support they'd like to receive and what kind of participation they'd like to have in this program. But being able to attend that mini conference will help them to submit really well-informed application. So they'll know a little bit more about that topic. They'll know a little bit more about that consultant, and then they'll be able to give that request. We'll be able to match you up. The consultants will deliver that technical assistance, and then we'll prepare a final report at the end of all of this that reflects the lessons learned as well as the tools developed. We'll share that very broadly throughout Arizona, but really also throughout the country, because communities across the country are really struggling with how do we build and preserve more housing that's affordable. And I think we have a lot to share in that regard, and we'll have even more to share after the delivery of this technical assistance. So please do look for that because we'll want to include you throughout this entire process. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is our timeline. Right now, we're developing that inventory. The inventory is being developed on the basis of the survey. So please, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and click on that link for the survey, and feel free to share it with your other colleagues and coworkers who are working in this kind of housing space too. They don't have to be housing staff. It could be somebody working for local or tribal government, but they're trying to figure this out and they're trying to further their work, their own expertise in this space. We are happy to work with you. So please complete that survey. The request for proposals will be going out next month because we want to be able to secure them and have that list approved by June. And the mini conference then featuring those consultants will occur in August. And so be looking for a save the date very soon. We've identified the date. Just want to make sure that we have our consultants on board and available for that. Right as we go into August, we'll be issuing that application process. It'll be really streamlined. It's really more just you telling us how you'd like to participate. And then we'll take those applications, we'll connect you with the consultants. And then for the next year, that technical assistance will be delivered. For some communities, it might be a quick hit. It might be, hey, I just need to talk with them and have them review this ordinance for us. Or maybe it's, I need to conduct a housing needs assessment and I need help. And the consultant can work with you over that following year then to help put that together. So the assistance can be long, it could be short, it could be alone, a solo, it could be with others. But whatever it is, we want to make sure that it's meaningful and that it's impactful. And then we'll be working at producing that final report then in December of 2025 and sharing it in the months to come in 2026 to let everyone know about the great work that's going on here in Arizona and the way that they too can pick up this kind of work as they struggle with the housing crisis in their own communities too. So we do look forward to seeing you at August in that mini conference, but do feel free to reach out at any time if you have questions, ideas, suggestions, anything like that. We'd love to be able to continue this conversation with you. If you can go to the next slide, please. That is my direct phone number and my email address. Please do feel free to reach out to me any point, and really look forward to learning from you because you know your community is the best. And we want to be able to support you as your community addresses how you're going to increase the supply of housing that's affordable for all of your residents and friends and neighbors. That does conclude my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or feedback that anyone might have.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
There is a question in the chat on if there is a date for the mini conference.
We do. I think something is online as well. Something, if you don't mind putting that into the chat. I think it's August 13th, but I just want to confirm that. And if something isn't able to do that, then I will be sure to follow up very quickly. So,
Thank you.
And also send that out to those who registered along with the slides from today.
yes, thanks.
Are there any other questions for Amy or for Nick? Okay, not seeing any. I want to thank you again for attending today. We really appreciate your participation and your interest in this work. We are always looking for feedback on future topics, on areas of interest, etc., in increasing affordable housing on Arizona tribal lands. If you do have any ideas for us, please feel free to contact us. We'll make sure to, again, follow up with you with the slides from today and other contact information for our speakers. And again, we just really appreciate your attendance. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
And August 13th, please do put that on your calendars. We'll be sending out the save the date. And if you have any questions in the meantime, Sapna has graciously put her email address in the chat. Please do feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.